What is up, everyone? Welcome to How to Draw Faces. I'm going to go through a demo first where we'll go step by step through a face drawing demo, and then we'll talk about how to actually learn each of these steps and an approach to learning how to draw. So let's first jump in the demo, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how to actually learn these steps. So for the demo, I'll be using a light blue pencil to get the initial guidelines down, and then I'll use a pen. So this might be a little bit light in the beginning, but you'll be able to see things more clearly as I go. So for step number one, draw a head shape guideline. So this is the most important step and probably one of the hardest steps to get right to learn. So you need to be able to build the structure of the head. We start with a circle, draw the center line, draw in the chin, and the eye sockets, and getting these angles right is very, very important. Getting this foundation correct is probably the most important and probably the hardest thing to do. So it's very common for beginners to jump through this step and not pay attention to the angles, and then the features come out wonky, right? So a lot of times I'll see beginners draw faces where the angle is too extreme and they're just not used to drawing features at those angles. So it's very important to make sure that you draw a head that you can actually draw the features on. So pick simple angles to begin with, and also pay attention to the actual structure of the head shape. And I'll get into a little bit more about how to practice that in a second. So for step number two, I'm adding in the nose structure. This gives me some sense of where the face is headed. It divides the second half, the bottom half of the head. So the nose will land halfway between the brow line where the eyebrows go, and the chin goes in between the halfway point. And that gives me some sense of where the lips will go, if the chin is in the right place. So using light guidelines for the head is very useful, because then I can go in and change where the chin is. Like if I want it further down, I can change it later. That's why it's good to draw the head, the initial head shape, very light, so you can make changes as you go. For step number three, I'm drawing in the eye shapes. So just jumping in, drawing the base shape of the eye. So I'm not going into any details yet. I'm just dropping in the base shape, getting a sense of how the features of the face will look. So I'm paying attention to the size of the eyes, placement, make sure the angle is right, getting these basics down first. For step number four, I'm adding in the lips. So since I already placed in the nose, I have a good sense of where the lips will go. So I'm just drawing in the lips now. I'm also paying attention to the angle of the face and how the lips will appear at that angle. For step number five, I'm adding in eye details. So now that I have the features on the face, adding in more details in the eyes, just jumping in. I have a better sense of how I want the eyes to look now that all the other features are there, and then going in, putting a little bit more details here. For step number six, I'm adding in ears and getting more detail again. So I'm jumping between these features, adding details as I go. So this gives me the sense of what the character will look like. So it's very important to get used to the features so that you can do this where you jump between the eyes, the nose, the ear, and just building up the character as you go, instead of just drawing one feature all the way through and then feeling a little bit lost about how the image looks overall. So it's good to jump around a little bit, get a sense of how these things fit together. It's a very good habit to get into. Also helps you make adjustments as you go. You'll also notice that I start to define the shape of the head as I go, because now I know, like, okay, I don't want the chin to be any longer. I know the guidelines are here. I know that I want the head to look this way, so I can start putting in these fine lines for the head shape. For step number seven, I'm drawing in the hair and I'm following the shape of the head. So I'm making sure that the hair follows the form of the head, the guidelines that we drew in, that they go back, putting this ponytail. For step number eight, add final details. And at this point, you also might want to erase away the guidelines. I just left the guidelines because they're so light. But if you want a more refined drawing, you want to add in final details and also erase away any guidelines that you don't want to appear in the final image. So these are all the steps. Now let's talk a little bit about how to actually learn each of these steps, because I'm sure that you're watching this and you've tried drawing faces before and you feel a little bit frustrated with, how do I actually learn this stuff? Because it's hard to learn because there's a lot of elements to learn. But I think there's an approach to learning this stuff that makes things way easier than you've probably tried before. So let's talk about that while I draw another face so that you don't have to look at my ugly mug the entire time. Let's talk about how to actually learn this stuff. So when you're first getting into learning how to draw faces, you want to start with the head shape, because that's the foundation where all the features sit upon, right? So if you're not used to drawing the head shape, then everything else will turn out bad and you'll feel frustrated with the features. So you might be trying to fix the features of the face while the foundation, the shape of the head is wrong. So no matter what you do to the features of the face, it wouldn't look right. So you want to take time to actually learn the head shape. And I have a free worksheet and a video tutorial to go along with it on the site. I'll link it in the description. Take time to do these worksheets, because it goes through all the base shapes. It teaches you how to construct the head from imagination. So you'll learn all the basic skills needed to draw the head at any angle. If you felt frustrated with drawing faces before, make sure to actually take time to learn this. Use the worksheet to learn it. Use references to learn it. And just stick to learning the shape of the head first without adding any features. Just isolate down to this one element. Learn it all the way through until you're comfortable, right? Take the time to learn it right. And then start adding features. Don't dive in and try to learn everything at once. I think that's a terrible way to learn because you can develop a lot of bad habits all at once if you do it that way. If you learn one element at a time, you can focus on that one element at one specific angle. You can even take it that far that where you just focus on one specific angle and then learn that properly and then start adding more complexity as you go. But the more isolated you practice, the easier it will be to fix mistakes and get things right. And it'll also be easier to celebrate your wins. Once you've taken the time to actually get comfortable with the shape of the head, add one feature, right? So let's say you want to learn eyes first because that's the most exciting probably for most of you. So you might want to take time to just learn the eyes at one specific angle, right? So pick, let's say 3/4 view or the front view or the side view. Take time, learn eyes at that one angle, then add it to the head and then pick another angle. Learn the eyes from that angle and then add it to the head. So now we're going back and forth, right? Between practicing the feature isolated, right? The eyes alone, and then adding it to the head. So if you go between these two, between what you already know and adding in new elements like this, it'll be way easier to learn. You'll learn way quicker than if you try to learn everything at once. So the concept here is to build up slowly, and this gives you the room to be excited about what you learn. It won't feel overwhelming, and it also gives you the space to actually improve quickly. So you'll see a lot of improvement in a short period of time if you focus down, do things slowly, and do things right. It'll make things way easier. So you use the worksheets. I also have worksheets for the eyes as well. So you can use the website. I have a bunch of portrait drawing tutorials there, line by lines, worksheets, video tutorials, everything on the site. Make sure to check that out. Also use other references, use photo references if you like. Also draw faces in styles that you actually want to draw in. So you don't have to draw realistically if you don't want to draw realistically. Draw stylized faces if that's what you want to be doing. You also want to make sure that you take time to be critical of how you can improve. So you look at your work, where could you improve more? Where are you missing things, right? Like, is there a mistake that you're continuously making? Are you drawing the eyes too big? Is the head shape wrong at certain angles? Maybe you're skipping through steps and not being critical enough. So make sure to take time to actually look at your work, grade yourself, right? Maybe you want to take your red pen, go back into your sketchbook and be like, okay, I keep making this mistake here, and I'm also making this mistake over here. That means that I have this bad habit. I need to go back in, practice it correctly, and then fix mistakes this way. And if you keep doing this where you're critical of your work, then eventually you'll get to a point where you'll snowball, or all your learning will snowball, and you'll learn very quickly because you get into this habit of looking for mistakes and then fixing them. One thing that's very important for this learning process is to set realistic expectations. Don't expect to learn how to draw faces in a single month, especially if you don't have a lot of time to draw, right? Like if you're drawing 8 hours a day, maybe you could do that, but even that's, I think, maybe too much. Set very realistic expectations. Be like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I'm just going to focus on the shape of the head. And then for another 2 weeks, I'm going to focus on the eyes. And then maybe after a couple of months, I'll get used to this stuff, right? So setting realistic expectations will make it easier to focus on the moment, because if you have very crunched expectations where you're trying to learn everything at once, all it will do is stress you out. It will make you frustrated every time you make a mistake, and it might make you blind to your mistakes because you're trying to learn quickly. So you start to ignore mistakes instead of taking the time, being patient with it. So it's very important to fix mistakes as they come up. You don't want to build bad habits, so make sure to set realistic expectations. On top of that, you also want to celebrate small wins and effort, right? So every time you sit down to draw, and if you draw for 20 to 30 minutes, you want to make sure that you reinforce that habit by giving yourself positive emotions. So the way you do that is you think in your head, oh, good job, right? I did this. I did this thing that's challenging. Even if you didn't get good results from it, right? Even if the end result turned out not to your expectations, you still want to take time to celebrate the effort so that your brain knows that you enjoy this, that it's valuable, right? So you want to be like, okay, you want to think in your head, I am on the right path. I'm putting in the effort. Therefore, I should feel happy, right? So you might want to take this as far as standing up, putting your hands in the air and be like, yes, I did it. And this is probably the most important part of the learning process, right? This is the thing that people always miss. You need to celebrate small wins and effort if you want to learn long term, right? Because what will happen is you'll reinforce the habit of learning. You'll reinforce the habit of studying and practicing so that just the thought of drawing brings you joy. If you think about eating your favorite food, you'll probably feel excited automatically. Well, you can get the same automatic excitement from doing something like drawing if you reinforce it, right? So you have to actually put effort into it to teach your brain that, oh, I enjoy this and I want to do more of this. So what you do is give yourself positive emotions every time you think about it, every time you put in effort, every time you draw something better than you drew it before. Take time to celebrate it. I really mean take time to celebrate it. You might want to take 10 minutes and just jump around and be like, yes, I did it, and really feel it physically. And that way you'll reinforce the circuit of, I enjoy drawing, I like this, I want to learn this, I will feel proud once I learn this, right? This is a big thing. It's that just imagine how you'll feel once you can draw faces like your favorite artist, right? Like pick your favorite artist, just imagine what it'd be like to draw faces. Put yourself in that place and feel those positive emotions even before you get there, right? So just be like, feel that positive feeling right now since you're already on the path, and that will make it way easier to learn. And this is like the most important thing by far for me. Like if there's any skill that you need to learn to actually learn how to draw faces, it's the habit building part of it. Because if you don't know how to draw faces right now, it's probably because you're not taking time to be critical, or you just don't have the drawing habit. You haven't been drawing long enough to build up the habit, and you might have been drawing for a very long time, but you've been feeling frustrated and not celebrating enough. You need to feel positive emotions as you work. So make sure to take time to celebrate small wins and the effort. I'm not saying to celebrate bad habits, right? But you want to celebrate the effort of finding bad habits and improving on it. And that's all there is to actually learning how to draw faces. You want to use the tutorials and stuff on the website, use references, use every tool available to you, and use references that you actually like, right? If you don't want to draw realistically, you don't have to learn how to draw realistically. Pick references that you like, use your favorite artist as references. You know, if Loish is your favorite artist, then feel free to use her as a reference. Make sure to learn how to draw the head shape first, then add features slowly. Take your time. Don't have too huge expectations, and don't try not to feel frustrated. It will feel frustrating at times. That's natural, but try to celebrate small wins and effort. Be happy that you're putting in effort, and that's all there is. You can check out more stuff on the website. Make sure to sign up for the mailing list if this was of value to you. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for checking this out. Hopefully this will be of use to you, and thank you so much. Bye.